Hi everyone and welcome along. So today we're going to do a very delicious little painting using gorgeous spring colours. We're going to do some delicious macaron. So these lovely little Parisian treats are a great way to practice sort of delicate colours, translucent tones, glazes, and then pop in a really concentrated layer to make a really beautiful little piece. And they are just really addictive to paint and to eat. But for now, grab your paints and let's get started. This is a lovely combination of delicious things and gorgeous watercolour tones and watercolour techniques. So what's not to love with macaroons, or macaron, I beg your pardon. Macaroons and macarons are slightly different things, and today we're doing the lovely little stacked up, brightly pastel coloured macaron. I've just got a piece of my regular size paper, so roughly 8 by 6 inches, and I'm going to I'll do 3 little cluster. And the great thing about these is you don't need to draw a perfect oval, a perfect circle. In fact, it's almost better if you don't. So I'm just drawing some freehand oval shapes. They're quite sort of rounded ovals. There we go, of slightly differing sizes. And the key to painting a good macaron shape is thinking about the stacking idea. So let's take this one for example. Once I've got my main shape, what I need is a few extra little lower curves to create the stack. So first off, I need one extra little sort of curve here for the foot of the macaron. Then, and it might come even further up like that. Then I need the filling. And then I need the base of the macaron. And you could even say that within that little one there might be an extra little sort of wobbly foot in there. Now, if you're not sure what I'm referring to when I say feet, if you have a little Google of a macaron, you'll notice they've got this beautiful sort of dome, and then they just have a little crispy edge around the base. And from years of watching Bake Off, I have learnt that a good macaron needs a good foot. And so you can see it just sort of juts out a little bit like that. And what I could do is I could just place in almost like a sort of burger. I could place in the bottom one and sort of establish the shape that I want. And then within that I could now put the filling and the little crispy foot of the upturned bottom macaron. So get your little stacks in and then give them a little roll with a kneadable eraser to just minimise the pencil, and then we can get painting. Now we have our macaron, we're going to choose our colours. So I've got 3. I think my favourite is pistachio. So I am going to take some green gold, and I want to just freshen it up a little bit. Take a very little bit of aqua green, and it will make it just that little bit more of a zesty green colour, but it's still got that sort of pistachio glow to it. And what I also need to do is to paint up or mix up a sort of stronger, more concentrated version of that colour for sort of low lights. So I'm just mixing in the palette there a more concentrated version of it. There we go. And then your filling is often quite a bit darker, sort of a ganache or a jam of some sort. So I'm going to take the aqua green there and have that ready to go. I'm going to begin with my size 2 brush, and I'm going to paint the top. Now I want to have a lovely shine on my macaron top, so I'm going to paint really quite sparingly with the colour, and I'm going to leave a very, very sort of pale section at the top, quite subtly pale, because of course the rest of the macaron is quite dilute as well. I just want to make sure it's quite a sort of soft little shine, because these are not glossy objects, are they, macaron? Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint down into the foot layer. Just take a size 0 brush, and then we'll also paint the bottom section as well. There we go, and I will just include the foot in there as well. Okay, so moving quite fast, I've got my slightly stronger colour here. The top has just had a chance to dry a little bit, but it is still wet, and I can use the slightly deeper colour to create a bit of a wet on wet shadowy edge, and then just around the sides here as well. And we're going to wait for that to dry before we do the details of the crispy foot in there. But I'm thrilled with that. I think that's really, really nice. So now we can just change over the water, because the colours are so delicate. I think we've got to do a pink one. I'll just move this out the way so no splatters. So I've got Opera Rose here, which feels a very good macaron colour. However, I think I just want to make it a little less sort of hot pink by incorporating a small amount of yellow ochre. And in doing that, it makes it a little bit more blush, a little bit more chic. So of course we need our stronger version of that colour. So I'm just going to pick up some stronger, more concentrated pink. Oh yeah, that's good. And then for the inside, for the filling, maybe some permanent rose. And we'll maybe even go down to alizarin crimson down here. Oh, speaking of which, I want to welcome our brand new members to the YouTube membership, alizarin crimson crew, as I've called it. If you're not sure what this is, YouTube membership is a lovely way you can support us on the channel. For $2.99 a month, you get some really fun little perks. Being a member of the channel, you get some exclusive hand-painted by me emojis to use in your comments, and you also get a little badge showing how long you've been a member for. And the other really, really exciting thing is you get an exclusive long-form edit of my sort of, you might have seen my little quick cut mini flower tutorials on social media. Well, if you enjoy those but you think they go a bit too fast and they're over too quickly, YouTube members as well as patrons get the long form edit of those. So I do a nice voiceover, it's much slower, and you can actually paint along with me. Anyway, let's get cracking with our pink macaron. And if you would like to support the channel, if you've enjoyed our tutorials over the years, then you can find the join button just underneath the video. Click that and you'll be able to join up with plenty of other wonderful members. And you'll also see they get a little sort of like parade along the bottom of the video as a little thank you for supporting us. Okay, so that's looking really nice. I'm going to take my slightly stronger colour. And how lovely does that look? So I ummed and ahed about the third one, but I decided in the end to go for a nice sort of golden yellow. So I used a combination of lemon yellow and permanent orange to create the wash, then just increased the concentration. And then for the filling, I've gone for yellow ochre. And you've got to make sure your brushes are clean, especially when you're using such delicate little colours. So I'm intrigued to know if you have all tried macaron before, because they are a beautiful sort of French. I always sort of associate them with Paris, but a beautiful little French delicacy you get in a patisserie. But they have made their way around the world with their huge popularity. So I wonder if my global audience has come across these delightful little things. And I just think we're gearing up for some Easter content. And in fact, we've got some Easter content coming your way this week on YouTube. And although these aren't strictly Easter, they are just so cheerful and spring-like with their colours and their delicacy that I thought it would be a lovely thing to do. And it's topic that was requested by one of my patrons. Okay, so we've got our light colours there, and now just get our slightly more concentrated tones. So with yellow, it's a little bit difficult to layer up, so that's why we get the orange involved, just to get a bit more contrast going on in there. But you don't need much, and of course it'll blend in and dry lighter. So that's looking rather lovely. Okay, I've now got 3 jars of water that resemble the colours on my page, so I'm just going to keep switching them around as I go. I think I'll look at the pink one next, just because it's easier from a left-handed perspective. So we've now got the opportunity to do some sort of delicate little crispy detail around the sort of the feet of the macaron. So I've got my size 0 brush and the sort of secondary, slightly more concentrated colour, the sort of the middle tone we've been looking at. And this will have dried, and so now I can layer up. Even though it's still very, very delicate layers, it's almost sort of like a glaze, but I consider this more of a layer. So I'm just sort of creating this slightly crispy, dotty texture around there, and I will do it with the underside as well. And then I can take some of this lovely deep pink. Look at the contrast there. And what I'm going to try and do is get a few bits of shine on this filling, because the idea is that it'll be a glossy ganache or jam inside. So I'm going to take my, what have I got? I've got a 4/10 brush here. I'll take some more alizarin crimson, quite concentrated. And just sort of paint it in. And the useful thing, obviously, if you've put in quite a lot of wet colour with that layer just gone before, you'll want to give it a moment to let it dry. But what I'm really enjoying is just getting these tiny bits of unpainted space, just tiny hints here and there, and it makes for a lovely glossy glossy filling. And what I quite like, the reason I've gone straight in to paint this concentrated layer, knowing that I just put in some slightly wet paint very close to it, is every now and then it will catch, and I actually think that really helps enhance the sort of crispy texture of the foot of the macaron. And what I'm actually going to do now, what I'm going to suggest to you, is taking just a little bit of this concentrated colour we've had on the jam, say, and use it to just enhance some of the crispy bits. And remember, when you paint sort of rounded items, if you focus your attentions on adding detail to the edges and sort of bringing it in and letting it sort of dry up on the brush and sort of run out as it comes into the middle, you'll get a much more three-dimensional feel to your item. So we're just going to do the same on our green and yellow ones. So for the yellow one, the challenge is obviously yellow struggles to show up on top of yellow layers. So as with before, we'll just make sure we've got a decent amount of orange in there, or maybe even a little bit of yellow ochre in there. And we'll be rubbing out the pencil fully at the end once it is done. So I think with the more delicate shades like this one, that will really help. But yeah, sometimes there are colours that you need to almost sort of go sideways on the colour wheel to help them out, to get a little bit more visibility, which is making me think that we might need to go even more sort of deep for the filling. For example, if I just take a little bit of that yellow ochre just like that, that's looking really nice. So we do need to go a little darker. So let's get some raw umber and make this a bit of a chocolatey, caramelly ganache. Maybe even a bit of burnt sienna actually. Because watercolour does dry lighter, so I'm always saying. Let's try that. Yeah, that feels like a fairly good contrast. We're going to be adding one more sort of layer of intensity to get more sort of shadow and depth in these, so there is room for more colour. So don't forget about the little bits of unpainted space. They make quite a big difference, as you can see from the other ones. And whilst we're just working wet on wet, I'll get a little bit more just pure burnt sienna there. Okay, we'll let those dry and then we'll add some finishing touches. Okay, so I have just rubbed out all the pencil on there with a hard eraser. So that's the difference between the soft eraser where I roll it to fade pencil before painting, I beg your pardon. And then afterwards, once I've got everything painted in the sort of basic wash stage, I get my hard eraser out, give it a good rub out, and then it means for the final stage I can add little bits of detail and know that the piece there's no pencil to rub out later. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, with my green, I'm just getting a little bit more of that aqua green into my wash mix. I'm going to do a glaze, just sort of around the side and on the bottom edge as well. And just soften that. Okay, and I'm going to do that on the pink one. Just clean my brush off, get my middle pink into there. Just coming around the side and on the bottom edge as well. I don't know about you, but I just think this really gives them an extra bit of fun. And then for the yellow, just got to make sure I've got enough orange in there for it actually to show up. That's great. And I think for the yellow, this is really, really helpful. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then we are going to look to find some real darkness to get just a tiny bit of depth and real darkness on the filling here. So for the aqua green filling, if I go right down and get some Payne's grey and get that in there, I mean, it's helpful that Payne's grey is on the blue spectrum too, but I just want to get some really dark colour and get a little bit of that, of a dark accent in there. And it really helps with contrast. Quite often with watercolour, I think people think their painting is finished long before it is, but then you have to balance that with knowing when to stop. So I appreciate that it can be a bit tricky to work out when is the time to stop. But that's what practicing is all about. A lot of people want to get things, well, a lot of us want to get things right first time, don't we? And that is tricky because you're only ever going to really develop as an artist by accepting and embracing failure. So I encourage you all, maybe paint a huge page of macaron and then just allow some to be sacrificed in the name of experimentation. Okay, so here is Moonglow, and I'm popping that into my alizarin crimson. And that is perfect, perfect dark colour. And if you remember, we had our light bounce there, so my real sort of darker areas are going to be focused more sort of down to this side. I mean, I will place in a little bit of it. But that's looking good. And then finally for the yellow, we just want a really deep, dark, rich brown. So burnt sienna. Maybe actually, ooh, maybe it's this. Look at that, that's nice. So I've just put burnt sienna into the alizarin moon glow combo. And that is looking lovely. So to finish, I'm going to add a little bit of shadow. So I've got my Payne's grey, and I think I'll just leave it as it is. It's a little bit blue, that's nice. And I'm going to take my size 4 brush and just gently place in a little sort of a sweep and then a clean wet sweep, and maybe just a tiny little bit on top there. Clean off the brush, clean wet brush. And there we have some lovely springtime macarons with some really nice techniques in using delicate colours and how you can build up those layers. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. YouTube members, thank you so much, and don't forget to use your custom emojis. It's a great fun thing to add to the channel, and of course I will see you next time. Bye!